Hi, this is Mrs. Brown from Research Triangle High School. The purpose of this presentation is to give you a bit of an overview of what to expect from the AP Language and Composition exam. Now, we talked about this class not really being project-based, but in essence, we really have one big project all year, and that is to be successful on this exam. So let's take a quick look at some of the features that you're going to find and some of the things that we'll be working on throughout the whole course. So just to answer some of the basics, the test itself is going to be in the spring. It's in May, and it will be on Wednesday the 13th, and it's at 8 o'clock in the morning. We're not quite sure where the location is. Usually, like last year, students went to nearby schools in order to take these tests. This will be the only AP test that's given that day, unless you're taking AP Statistics, which will be that afternoon. The exams are an $89 fee per exam, but there is financial help available for families who could use that. Now, the overall structure of the test is about 3 hours and 15 minutes. There's two sections. There's a multiple choice section, which you get about an hour for, and then there's an essay section where you're writing 3 essays, and you have 2 hours and 15 minutes to write those 3 essays. Now, within that 2 hours and 15 minutes, you decide how much time you're going to spend on each one. So you kind of have to keep track of that time. We usually recommend about 40 minutes per essay, but some things you may finish very quickly and spend more time on, but you have to kind of monitor yourself, and we will also practice that skill throughout this year. The essays will come in 3 different types. There'll be an analysis essay, an argument essay, and then the synthesis essay. And we'll break down each one of those on the next couple of slides. The first thing that you'll do is answer the multiple choice question. Now, this is 45% of the overall score, so a little less than half. Incorrect items do not count for you or against you, so there's no penalty if you try to guess. You won't gain a point if you get it wrong, but then you don't lose anything. So they really want to encourage you to think. So most of the time in your multiple choice test, you'll have one answer that's correct, one answer that's a distractor that sounds correct but isn't there, and then 3 that are absolutely wrong. So usually if you use that kind of logic and reasoning and critical thinking that the test is testing you on, you can eliminate some of the answers and you have a much better thing. So they don't want to punish you for guessing, but they want you to take that opportunity to kind of use that time to score it correctly. Your task basically is going to be reading passages and then answering specific questions about those passages. There's going to be questions about the rhetoric, tone, diction, style of what you find in that reading passage. So the multiple choice section is going to have between 5 to 7 passages. It varies from year to year. Usually there's between about 5 to a dozen questions per passage. So you get around 50-55 questions total for that time. So 60 minutes for that exam, 8 passages, that's about 12 minutes per passage. That includes reading and answering. So yeah, this is going to be a fast pace. You're not going to have a lot of time. You're going to have to really look at things, make some quick decisions, or decide that there's some things you're just not going to answer at all, then you're going to go more in depth on some of the others. At least one of the passages will have been written before 1800, and when you get the passage, there's little or no context or introduction. Sometimes it'll tell you when it was written or what it's from, but part of your task is going to be to see if you can figure out what the context is for the passages. The next thing that you'll get to are your free responses, or otherwise known as your essays. There's 3 different prompts, so you'll have 3 different essays to write. And before you start the essays, you get a 15-minute reading session. That means you've got 15 minutes that you're not allowed to start writing in the answer book, but you can mark up on all those essays. So it gives you a chance to kind of read them and preview them, highlight things, annotate what you want to look at, and that kind of gives you a running start when you're ready to start writing. Again, you've got 2 hours to complete all 3 of the writing prompts, and you have to keep track of your own time within those 3 hours. Now, your essays are read and scored separately. So when that test comes to the testing center, it's all split up. So if you do a really great job on essay 1, don't say, well, they'll know that I was good on essay 1, so they'll give me some slack for 2 and 3. Sorry, it doesn't work that way. Those people will never see what you wrote on 2 and will never see what you wrote on 3. So you have to do a good job on each one. Now, the good thing is that these essays are considered as drafts. Everyone knows who's scoring them that these were done under timed conditions, that they're not finished products. And so you are expected to show evidence of thinking and structure, but not necessarily a completed product, which is really cool. And we'll talk about some of those things later on. For example, you can scratch out things as you can go, you can loop stuff back around and make notes. And you don't necessarily have to have these cutesy little introductions and that classic 5-paragraph structure. You can throw some of that out the window. What they're going to be looking for is your evidence of thinking and your control of the language. So can you express what you're thinking? Can you help the reader follow the argument that you're putting together? Now, the first essay will be an analysis essay. You're going to be given a passage to read. Usually it's nonfiction, but not always. And you have to analyze the author's work, what they did within this, the structure, the purpose, the style, kind of similar to what you did in the multiple choice bit where you read passages and answered questions, but now you have to be the one to construct the response. So the analysis essay is really looking for you to use textual evidence. So what can you find within the text to analyze maybe the author's view on a specific subject, the rhetorical devices that they're using, the stylistic elements, the tone, and how the author gets that tone across. So you're going to be looking at that text and looking specifically at what did the author do to create that. Some of the things that you might also do as you take a look at this passage that you're given is compare and contrast. You might look at the author's purpose. You might look at some of the ways that the author recreates a real or imaginary experience. How do they use the language? How does the author present him or herself in the passage? That's that ethos that we were talking about last night's video. Or the intended or probable effect of a passage. What was the author intending, and what does the reader actually feel when they're done reading this? The second essay is what they call the argumentative essay. In this case, you're going to be given a prompt that takes a position or that poses a problem of some kind, and your job is to take a specific stand, to say, here's exactly what I think, and then clearly and logically explain and support your claim. Now, there's 3 things that you can do. You'll read through the prompt, and then you'll decide, do I think about this subject the same way that this writer or this speaker thought? In that case, then you're going to be writing an agreement. You're going to be saying, yes, I support this point of view. Or you'll say, do I think about this, that the writer and the speaker is just totally wrong about this? In which case, you're going to be taking a position of disagreeing with the prompt that you're given. Or do you think some of what was said was correct and some of what you said was totally wrong, that there's a middle ground in some way? Then you're going to be doing what's calling a qualified response. You're going to be giving a little bit of each. But it's really important that you do one of these 3 things and that you use the evidence to show exactly what you're doing with that answer. Now, the last one is actually my favorite, and this is a relatively new essay. It used to be the AP was just the 2 essays, and then they added this one because the College Board really wanted you to be able to show your ability to think. This is what you have to do in college and in the real world, is to look at all these different pieces of evidence, all these different points of view, and then put them together to form your own brand new idea. So synthesis means to create something new out of all of these different parts that you've brought in and that you've considered and combined. So you're going to be given about 6 or 7 documents. Now, don't panic. These are short works, so little excerpts from speeches, articles, letters, texts, nonfiction stuff, literary pieces, maybe a poem. At least one of them is always a visual, some sort of non-textual text. So that might be a chart, a map, a table. They like to use political cartoons. It might be a piece of artwork. One year it was a photograph. And then most of the time, these 6 or 7 pieces represent opposing views, or this dialectic where the pieces seem to be kind of talking to each other. One says this, and the next one kind of takes a different position or a different perspective on that same issue. And then it's like you're being invited to come on in and join the conversation. So all of these people are saying things. What do you say about it now? And that's what the synthesis essay is going to do. So what you'll do on the synthesis essay is obviously read the texts, annotate them, think about them very carefully, but then you're going to craft your own thesis about the topic. Having read all of these things, what do you now believe is true about this issue? You'll refer to a minimum of 3 of the sources in your work, and you can refer to all of them if you want to, and we'll talk about some strategies with that, but you're required to refer to at least 3. Now, when you refer to them, you can either agree with them and say, hey, this person says, and this supports my position. You can concede points. You can say, well, this is a good point, and then add the but, but I think this. Or you can refute them and say, absolutely not, this person's dead wrong, or this picture's got exactly the wrong idea. And you'll use quotes from each of these texts, and you will attribute to them by number. So you'll say source number 1, or you might refer to them by the author. And again, we'll talk about specific strategies for attributions. But you need to know that as you're writing, you'll be pulling out pieces from these texts that you have given and giving the attributions as you're writing. Now, you may want to know, how do you pass this test? What is a passing grade? You may have heard things tossed around, or you may have seen the title of books of, how to get a 5, or, 5 easy steps to getting a 5. The overall scoring, that's your multiple choice and your essays combined, are going to be a score of 1 to 3. I suppose you could get a score of 0, but if you just didn't even show up, but 1 to 5. Most colleges will not accept anything below a 3 if you're trying to use this AP class to take your place of some college credit. Many colleges, including a lot of the local ones, will require at least a 4 or sometimes even a 5. So what you're actually asking a college to do is to say you don't need to take this college course, that you've already passed it and taken the information through the high school level advanced placement. So you've been advanced in through this. So some colleges are a little concerned about what you may have actually done and accomplished. So you have to demonstrate really strong mastery of a topic before they'll allow that credit. Some may also still require their own placement test. So even though you have an AP score, they may say, well, we still want you to take this test to prove it to us again. Or they might exempt you from the class but not award the credit. So they'll say, well, you don't have to take Composition 101, but you still have to take something else in this place, and you can take something else in your major or whatever. In general, it's considered a really great thing, because for $89, you end up getting, in a lot of cases, if you get a 4 or 5, 3 full college credits that probably run closer to $200 or $300 per credit. So it's a money-saving thing. It lets you enter your freshman year in college with a lot of the basics under your belt if you've taken several AP classes, and just kind of gives you a chance to have a little bit more freedom down the line. So it really is important to do your best to get as high a score as you can. Some of you I know may be taking this course just to improve yourself, and you're not really even that worried about the test. A few of you may even, we won't encourage you, may even decide though not to even take the exam, and that's fine. We really want you to pick up some of this thinking skills and some of these writing skills, and hopefully be able to apply them and show success and demonstrate that through the mastery. But regardless of your motives, that's how your test will be scored, is that 1 to 5. So hopefully this has answered some of your most burning questions about exactly what's going to be on the test. Don't panic about all of this. Like I said, I'm going to try to feed it to you slowly, but just keep writing those essays as we go, and you'll find that before you know it, you're throwing around all of these terms and you're perfectly comfortable and you're doing great and you're scoring all kinds of 5s on this. So that's the end for this one. Good night.